Hello, Internet. I'm Ren, and this is Ren Rants, a channel where I talk about things I care about, which, at the moment, is mostly Star Trek. In this video, we're breaking down Season 2, Episode 3 of Strange New Worlds, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, like the Shakespeare poem. I'll start, of course, with some spoiler-free impressions before getting into the details and going through the episode scene by scene. This is a time travel episode, and personally, I absolutely love the temporal misadventures of Trek. They're often a bit incomprehensible in terms of the actual temporal mechanics, if you think about them too hard. But I like to cut them some slack because, like the courtroom episodes, they are one of my favorite Trek subgenres, and I'm just here to have a good time.
I could be destined to fall in love with that woman and become my own great-grandfather.
You're being ridiculous.
Ridiculous? If I don't meet with her tomorrow, I may never be born.
If she's my grandmother, who's my grandfather? Isn't it obvious? You are!
This is a La'an episode, and we get to see Kirk again. The pairing of Kirk and La'an to carry an episode is not something I would have predicted, but I really liked their chemistry. They're a fun duo and play off of each other so well. After doing an in-depth review of last week's much talkier episode, I was honestly a bit glad for one with more action from a selfish perspective, but I think it managed to balance the emotional storytelling with the action a lot more effectively than the Season 2 premiere. And the action also felt a lot more justified within the story to me. I'd say it wasn't as commentary heavy as some of the other time travel episodes throughout the franchise.
By the early 2020s, there was a place like this in every major city in the United States.
And nothing competes with the Voyager 2-parter where we get Sarah Silverman as a guest star and Tuvok wearing a do-rag to hide his ears.
Lost. We were on the museum tour and we took a wrong turn at the Saturn exhibit.
Perhaps you could tell us how to get back to the lobby.
Go back down the hall, take a left at Mars, right at Halley's Comet, and then just keep going straight ahead past the soda machine. Okay?
This lab is, pretty groovy.
But I'd still rank it pretty highly among the time travel episodes. Some of the elements of this episode were actually set up really nicely by previous episodes, so I think overall it was an effective blend of episodic and serialized storytelling. I do think there's a moral tension within the episode that doesn't feel adequately addressed, and a couple bits that really stretch the limits of suspension of disbelief, but I'll talk about that more in the spoiler section. Overall, it was a good episode, and I think it'll rank pretty highly for me over the course of the season, just for some of the emotional beats and the way that it progressed La'an's character. In some ways, I kind of feel like La'an is the Data, 7 of 9, and/or an alternate Spock of Strange New Worlds, insofar as she's kind of relearning how to be human after living so long with her emotions shut down from the combination of Gorn trauma and the bigotry she's grown up with. We actually did see La'an and Spock mirror each other a little bit before in the Season 1 episode Memento Mori, but I've really enjoyed La'an's journey so far, and the end of the episode absolutely made me cry. So that's all I can say without spoiling anything for you. Go watch the episode and come back so we can talk about it. Consider this your warning for spoilers for Strange New Worlds Season 1 and Season 2 so far, as well as some mild Voyager spoilers and Star Trek Picard spoilers. La'an opens the episode with a personal log lamenting how hard it is to make friends while going through her mundane day-to-day security duties, like dealing with noise complaints.
May I inquire as to who filed this noise complaint against me?
It was anonymous.
I shall make every effort to practice less vigorously going forward.
And petty crew disputes.
The ring was a gift from my matriarch.
The transporter buffer doesn't steal from people. That's enough. Thank you.
Or searches for contraband.
Property of the archaeology department.
I used to work there, didn't I? So this is all above board. I still have a bunker in Vermont where I used to live in case this whole no money socialist utopia thing turns out to be a fad.
I love Pelia so much. The woman is an absolute menace.
Yes, well, and that's a fake. So you can tell the Louvre to stop calling me.
You can take it up with Captain Pike.
La'an does some combat training with M'Benga, continuing the tradition of crew exercising together while they hash things out. M'Benga tries to open the door to let her confide in him.
As your sparring partner, I'd advise you talk to your physician. Maybe he could help.
I don't need to talk here. I don't need to be medicated.
You didn't come to the party for Una at the captain's quarters.
She's clearly still processing her issues with her heritage and identity, reconciling the horrors of Khan with who she is and who her family were.
Trying to bear all of this by yourself. It's got to be...
What?
lonely.
But she's still just not ready to open up yet. I also like that we see this little combat lesson with Mbenga pay off later in the episode.
What was that?
I simply used your energy against you.
Later, La'an sees a man stagger into the corridor, and this episode gets right into the action. He tells her there's been an attack in the past and she has to stop it. He gives her a device and tells La'an to go to the bridge, and then dusts like a vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. La'an arrives on the bridge only to find Captain Kirk talking to Spock over the view screen. Vulcan is at war with the Romulans. Spock is imploring Kirk for help, which he does not agree to give.
It is a human adage, I believe, that the enemy of your enemy is your friend.
Maybe in some other lifetime, Captain Spock. We have our own problems with Romulus, and we can't afford to fight a war on two fronts.
Without your assistance, the last of our fleet will be destroyed. Our homeworld will be left defenseless.
I'm sorry.
No one on the Enterprise recognizes La'an. Kirk investigates the matter.
So you're telling me that there's an alternate timeline where I'm not the captain of this ship? Our scientists have theorized that such a thing could be possible. A far simpler explanation is you've lost your mind. Except there's no record of you in our database.
And reveals he's never heard of Starfleet.
Starfleet has regulations for situations like this.
I have to stop you there, ma'am. I have never heard of this Starfleet. I am a captain in the United Earth Fleet.
La'an reveals the device, but when Kirk tries to confiscate it, she presses the button, taking them back to 21st century Toronto.
Seems to be New York City. Mid-21st century.
What?
What?
It's Toronto. Take it you've never been.
The device presumably won't send them back to their time until the mission is complete. We find out a little more about Kirk's timeline.
I've never been to Earth at all. I was born in space on the USS Iowa. Earth in my time, it isn't like this.
What is it like?
Battleground for a while, then occupied territory, and then a ruin.
It sounds about as bleak as it looked. And they're both cold.
Was it always this freezing on Earth?
This isn't actually that bad for Canada, but it will get colder at night.
So they head off in search of warmer clothing.
Never seen a revolving door before.
I'm from space.
They briefly try on the same outfit. Cute moment. And La'an sneaks a peek of Kirk as he changes. Weird moment. And they steal the clothes.
You a fast runner?
I have a better idea. Hold that.
Ma'am, can you step inside?
Sorry.
La'an doesn't want to steal anything else, so Kirk hustles the locals in chess. A callback to the original series in which we see Kirk is quite adept at the game.
And again. Check. Checkmate.
Your illogical approach to chess does have its advantages on occasion, Captain.
They get hot dogs with some of Kirk's winnings.
Enjoy. Come on. I am your superior officer, and I am ordering you to have a hot dog.
And he marvels at the sunset.
What?
Nothing.
You don't have sunsets in your time?
From the videos I've seen, we mostly have clouds of ash that won't clear for 1,000 years and underground lunar habitats with no view of the sun at all. My advice? Don't skip good hot dogs when you can get them.
They're in a hotel later, and La'an pulls an Edward Cullen and watches Kirk sleep. But he's actually awake and aware of her creepitude. In the morning, they plan what to do next. Kirk is enjoying the amenities.
Oof. Well, that really beats a sonic shower.
And I knew it. I knew sonic showers were not good. They always sounded terrible to me. And now we have proof.
Write a list of what you remember too. We can figure out what's changed.
When there's a tiny little bar to go through?
Are you serious? We may not have much time.
And they have another chat about the timelines. Kirk isn't thrilled about the idea of his timeline just disappearing.
This is a fork in the road. Your future and mine diverging from this moment. If we fix your timeline, we destroy mine. My life, my friends, my whole existence. Erased. My best option is to do absolutely nothing. Enjoy the hot dogs and the hot showers and let whatever's gonna happen, happen.
You're at war. Your Earth is a ruin.
We've made the stars our home.
My Earth still has sunsets. You could be an explorer.
And he laments that he may not exist in the other timeline.
Or I may not exist in your timeline at all.
La'an, of course, reveals that he does.
But you do.
But the real selling point is when he finds out that Sam is alive in the other timeline.
I mean, we've never met, but I've heard stories about you from your brother.
Sam's alive.
A bridge explodes immediately after this emotional revelation, and for the second time this episode, La'an's gotta get to the bridge.
My God.
Get to the bridge.
Someone's taking some of the wreckage. They approach a girl taking photos of them, and she shows them her footage. They steal a car with a Vulcan neck pinch.
Where did you learn to do that?
Spent 6 months in a Denobulan prison. Cellmate was a Vulcan. I can also make pumik soup in the toilet.
And they follow that van! They tease each other about their names, and La'an enjoys Kirk not recognizing hers.
Be discreet.
Basically my middle name.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! No, actually, I've read your personnel file. You have some insane...
No, Tiberius is not insane.
The least discreet middle name.
It was my grandfather's. For one to talk. La'an, Noonian, Sung.
Sing.
Whatever.
You haven't heard it before.
What?
Just the first time in a while someone hasn't recognized it.
Oh. Famous?
Infamous is more like it.
Oh.
The van violates a traffic stop, and Kirk goes careening very illegally off after it.
Hold on. No, you don't actually have to.
You literally just told me to hold on.
Kind of reminded me of Little Kirk stealing a car in the 2009 movie. Anyways, he totally almost splatters a random pedestrian and manages to draw the attention of local police.
Whoa! That was a person!
Alright, well, actually, keep holding on.
They try to arrest Kirk. The girl from the bridge disaster site uses her phone to de-escalate the stop.
Surprise! Let me guess, you haven't made your quota for the week yet?
Move along, ma'am.
Just so you're aware, this is streaming live. Say hello to the entire very judgmental internet. And because you're profiling him for being American?
This is a totally routine stop.
Sure, you just randomly pulled over a famous civil rights attorney.
Nothing random about it.
So you agree, this is targeted harassment.
Honestly, this scene was totally ridiculous, and the way she gets him out of it feels a lot beyond the suspension of disbelief. It's just an odd choice, too, as like a commentary on police, because they were right to pull him over like a cab, but the dude was driving so recklessly. It was really peculiar and literally less believable than the cops not pulling him over at all. The girl introduces herself as Sarah. She seems like a conspiracy theorist.
Why did you...
Because you were following the van. Without a lot of discretion for what it's worth.
Discretion is his middle name.
Okay, look, I'm used to doing this on my own, but we have notes that we can compare.
You know who blew up the bridge?
Well, I can make an educated guess. I mean, it was destroyed, obviously not randomly because of what it symbolized. International cooperation, the world getting smaller, humanity working together. We blame on a terrorist attack, and we'll go back to fighting each other instead of the real threat.
You mean...
aliens.
But she insists that there's a cold fusion reactor in the city. She tells them more over poutine.
Wait, poutine has gravy? This is amazing.
Can you focus?
La'an worries that Sarah is unhinged.
I'm not sure we can believe anything she's telling us.
Well, she knew enough to follow the van from the bridge explosion.
She's unhinged.
But she shows them a picture of a Romulan ship, which bolsters her credibility. As a side note, it's weird to me that La'an and Kirk don't question her story about an astronomer trying to take a pic of the International Space Station.
How did you get this?
An astronomer trying to take a picture of the International Space Station in the right place at the right time.
during the day with visible cloud cover, but I guess they were distracted because immediately afterwards she shows them footage of a guy waiting around by the explosion site before it happened. She earnestly thanks them for listening.
No, I mean, you listened. You didn't tell me that I was crazy. You have no idea what that means to me. Anyway, thank you.
And they part ways. They figure out that there actually is a cold fusion reactor in the city.
Look, she said that there's an experimental cold fusion reactor somewhere in the city. Well, I know that there is because in a few days it's going to be destroyed and wipe out Toronto. A Romulan first strike.
None of that happens in my timeline.
And we need to find the cold fusion reactor first. Stop the time traveler from destroying it.
But they don't have a tricorder.
Which would be trivial if we had a tricorder.
Yeah. If only someone hadn't impulsively zapped us over here without one.
They need an engineer. And La'An realizes she knows someone in Vermont. And they meet up with Pelia. We also find out that the archaeology department is actually just a store that peddles in antiques and rare finds.
This is going to sound crazy, but we spent all day getting here. We had to bribe a border guard, we took a cab, and 4 buses. Please, Pelia.
As a side note, I'm glad they tried to address the passport issue, even though I didn't buy for a second that they could actually afford to bribe a Border Patrol officer with Kirk's chess winnings. Listen, I'm not saying Border Patrol isn't corrupt. I just don't think it comes that cheap, especially in Canadian dollars, for an American border guard. Come on now.
How'd you know my name?
I know you. And I know your secret.
I need more to go on than that.
How else would I know that you're a Lanthanite? How else could I know that you stole that from the Louvre?
After revealing she knows who Pelia is, La'An asks her for help.
My friend and I, we're on a mission to protect something beautiful. The future of humanity. And I think you know from experience just how fragile that future is. We are maybe hours away from losing that future entirely. You are the only person I can trust to help us.
What you need?
But there's just one problem.
An engineer.
But then, why the hell did you come to me?
Pelia isn't an engineer yet.
I work retail. Does this look like an engineering place? I haven't taken a math class since Pythagoras made the crap up.
Pelia takes it in stride, though, and actually does manage to help them come up with a rudimentary detector of sorts.
We don't have to understand how cold fusion works to find the reactor. We just need to find its byproducts. Excess heat, neutrons, tritium.
Tritium? Like in divers' watches, old divers' watches from the 80s. I'm going to show you. Follow me.
Tritium gives off a small amount of radiation. The dials must be coated in something that reacts with it. Maybe, phosphor?
Tritium has a short half-life, so it would decay.
Leaving only the reactive material behind. Take the glass casing off. The reactive material will be exposed to the air, and if there's tritium present,
the hands of the watch will glow.
I looked it up to see if this is a thing. The watches are real and do work that way, but I'm not actually sure they could be used like this. They say goodbye to Pelia.
Thank you so much for your help. You are more of an engineer than you think.
Thank you. Maybe I missed my calling. Be nice to make an honest living for a change. Not that any of this stuff is stolen.
And return to Toronto. I guess they bribed another border guard with their infinite money. Not gonna lie, this episode feels a bit like a budget saver since it sidelines Pike and everyone else again. It's pretty light on the special effects, and it's set in present-day Toronto, which is near the CBS studio soundstage. But it's fine, I'm sure they're saving the money for something really cool down the line, and this episode mostly worked for me. I just think it's kind of funny. La'An thanks Kirk.
If I was in your position, I don't know that I would have gone along with this. I don't think I could have gotten this far without you.
You definitely have frozen to death on the first night. Or starved. That hot dog saved your life.
Oh, well, how many people can say that?
And suggests that he should come back with her to her timeline.
I can only save one timeline. I'd rather live in yours. I mean, I know that's not how it works. Lectures in temporal mechanics, but
What if you could?
I'm not sure one timeline is big enough for two of me.
I'm serious. I brought you here. If we can fix this, maybe the device could take us both back.
And it's at that second I knew he was boned and fated to go the way of Spare Harry. Poor Sperry. After all,
A time paradox duplicate is always doomed.
But poor, sweet La'An confesses to Kirk how much she enjoys his company.
People are usually difficult for me. There's always been a barrier, and it can get lonely. But you...
Me? I'm special?
Yes.
And they kiss! I'm glad they went for it. They definitely established a vibe between the two, and I am nothing if not a shameless shipper. Try saying that 5 times fast. Kirk notices that the watch has started glowing. The reactor is inside a building labeled the Noonien Singh Institute. And then it was clear where they were going with this. And they set it up for us last episode.
Their experience with genetic modification, the eugenics wars, was horrific. The pain that Earth felt, unimaginable. The Federation built a utopia in its wake.
La'An uses her DNA to open the door, and suddenly, Sarah, who has been following them this whole time, pops out with a gun. She's a stealth Romulan, like Laris's ancestor in Picard Season 2, except she's not here to help humanity.
You blew up the bridge.
I didn't. Everything I told you was true. My people have been slowing human progress.
You're a Romulan from the future.
She's got a gun trained on Kirk. He bravely tells her to go ahead and trigger the alarm system by shooting them.
Now get in.
Not a chance. You want to shoot us? Go ahead. You have to know that if you do, the building's alarms will go off. Security will lock the place down. Your plan will fail.
You're bluffing.
Try me.
And she does!
No. No. You're gonna be okay.
Not bluffing.
No, you're gonna be okay. Look at me. It's okay.
Poor little guy. He dies in La'An's arms, and it's honestly so sad.
Keep your eyes on me.
Say hi to Sam for me.
No. No. James.
I knew we weren't going to get 2 Kirks. We've already got 2 Rikers and 2 Boimlers running around after all, but man, it was brutal. Sarah and La'An get into the Institute. Sarah murders a guy and reveals she isn't interested in the reactor anymore, but instead, dun dun dun, it's Project Khan she's after. What effed up the timeline when the reactor blew wasn't the loss of Toronto, rip, but of Khan. Sarah spends a minute monologuing and explains more about her evil plan.
You're here to kill Khan Noonien Singh. Why?
Because a computer simulation told me to. Khan becomes a brutal tyrant. I mean, maybe humanity needs the dark age that he brings in to usher in their age of enlightenment. Or maybe it's just random. Doesn't really matter, though, because if I kill him, the Federation never forms. And the Romulans lose their greatest adversary.
Including being quite frustrated to have been stuck on Earth for the past 30 years since the events were supposed to happen in 1992.
And all this was supposed to happen back in 1992, and I've been trapped here for 30 years trying to get my shot at him. I'm not going to stop now, so open the door.
I like that it deviates from canon and then justifies it right away for the sticklers. It also reminds me of another time traveler who got trapped.
Hey! There's an explosion in the 29th century. Debris from Voyager's hull is found in evidence. I go back in time to destroy you.
Sarah tries to get La'An to open the door.
My real name is La'an
Noonien Singh. My ancestor is Khan Noonien Singh. And his legacy is genocide, torture, and me.
You have a device in your pocket that protects you from changes in the timeline. If he dies, you can live whatever kind of life you want, and you'll never have to hear the name Khan ever again.
La'an and Sarah fight it out, and at least La'an makes more sense as a fighty character, so it really doesn't bug me too much. I think we see La'an use Mbenga's fight move from the top of the episode, which is a nice little bit of payoff. And then she shoots the Romulan with her own gun, and she turns into dust. La'an has a little chat with Khan before she goes back.
You don't need to be scared of me.
Come here.
You're just a little boy. This won't make any sense right now. Maybe it won't ever. But you are right where you need to be.
And obviously, she was never going to kill a little kid, but I do feel weird about how this episode tries to basically resolve the question of would you go back in time and shoot baby Hitler? I don't know. It's just hard for me to believe that genocide was the missing ingredient to Earth forming the Federation, especially with the consequences for augmented people we saw in the previous episode. And as someone whose mom is from Germany, I felt kind of weird about the messaging that the genocides of the eugenics wars were necessary for better things to come. Even if it guarantees the almost utopia that is the Federation, having that built on millions of corpses doesn't feel like a great message to leave us with, especially right now. Very ends justify the meansy in an uncomfortable sort of way. Like, I see what they were going for, and I know we had to return to the status quo, and thematically it's also about La'an learning to accept something horrific about her heritage that was outside of her control. But there's something that feels questionable about this particular vehicle for that journey. It morally bites off more than it can chew in a kind of similar vibe to the controversial Voyager episode Tuvix, but in a different way.
I think we all should hear what you have to say.
Please come with me, Mr. Tuvix.
No.
I'm ordering you to come with me. Security to the bridge.
It's just one of those things that doesn't hold up well to scrutiny if you pay too much attention to it. You know what I mean? But anyways, La'an returns to her time and to the bridge to find Pike arguing with Pelia about her stolen, totally above board goods. But anyways, La'an returns to her time and to the bridge to find Pike arguing with Pelia about her stolen, totally above board goods.
Says the statute of limitations passed decades ago. I checked.
Is there a statute of limitations on plundering antiquities?
Oh, La'an. Maybe Starfleet Security wants to weigh in on this.
I say we should let this one slide, Captain.
You're not wearing a uniform. Is something wrong?
Nothing's wrong, Captain. I just needed to check on something, and now I have.
She returns to quarters to find a time agent waiting for her, and she's told to keep her mouth shut about what happened.
The man who gave me this was one of us. Thank you again for completing his mission. It must have been harrowing. I have to insist that you not share any of what you experienced, even with Captain Pike or anyone else from this time.
And La'an is justifiably angry.
You sent me back to protect a mass murderer.
To be clear, I didn't send you anywhere.
I had to kill to protect him. I had to watch my... And I can't even talk about it?
You protected the timeline in a way no one else could have. Would you risk undoing all of that?
The time agent thanks her and asks for their equipment back and then fucks off, leaving La'an alone with her newly acquired emotional baggage, and also clearly traumatized. La'an makes up a pretext to call their timelines Kirk, and they banter for a bit.
No, we've never met. I'm La'an Noonien Singh, Chief of Security on the Enterprise.
Oh, God.
What did Sam do?
Oh, no, Sam, sorry. Sam's fine. Sorry to worry you. I was just looking for something for his file.
His security file?
That's right. Just a place of birth, please.
Riverside, Iowa. Same as me.
Iowa on Earth.
Iowa on Earth. Yes, ma'am.
It's also actually the first time we see the real Kirk in this main timeline, since the first time we met him was also in an alternate timeline. It's kind of funny that this dude is seemingly always at war with the Romulans in alternate timelines. Kirk invites La'An for a drink next time they're both at Starbase.
Well, you want the real dirt on George Samuel Kirk. Buy me a drink next time we're on Starbase together. I got some real gems for his permanent file.
That sounds lovely.
Kirk out.
They hang up, and La'An finally just lets it out. And starts to sob all alone in her quarters, and my heart, it's no fair she can't get therapy for this. Our girl has been through so much. I love this scene though. It makes me cry every time I watch it. She's such a strong character, and we've seen her deeply affected by things before, but the vulnerability we see from her in this scene just hits in a totally different way. Christina Chong is absolutely amazing in this episode. La'An has been one of my favorites since season 1. The way her arc handles trauma is really effective, although it feels like she endures an unfair amount of it. I do think long-term, the things she's come to accept about herself in this episode will continue to propel her character forward. I hope she ends up a little bit lighter by the end of the season. It was hard seeing her open up and then immediately lose the first person she connected to in that way. Paul Wesley is also very enjoyable as Kirk in this episode. Kirk has never been my favorite Star Trek captain and still isn't, but I thought the unexpected pairing of him with La'An was effective and they played off of each other so well. As I said, I knew he wouldn't be going back to the Prime timeline, but I knew for sure he was going to get toasted, like the second she suggested he come back with her. I'm definitely interested to see where they do go with La'An and the Prime Kirk. I hope we get to see them get that drink. I think they handle alternate Kirk's death with a weight that's often not given to spare characters, and I felt like the emotional payoff really worked in all of the more heart-wrenching scenes in a way that felt earned. The suddenness of Kirk dying also hit hard. No time for grand speeches or a more dramatic sacrifice, just boom, dead.
I started blasting. Bang! Wow.
It's interesting that this is the third episode in a row where Pike has taken a back seat. It's been kind of nice to focus on the rest of the crew this season, although I'd still like to see more of some of the less utilized side characters like the new transporter chief we've gotten a couple glimpses of, and Jenna. But in general, I really enjoyed this episode, and I think it pulled off a lot of tricky stuff pretty well. Particularly with La'An's character development, even if we had to watch her suffer again. I do wish it had been a little more conscious morally of the breadth of the issues it pulled into the story, but I tend to be forgiving of episodic storytelling for not always being able to deal with the full implications of a single episode. So that's all I have for now. Let me know what you thought about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow in the comment section down below. If you want to see more videos from me, subscribe, and see you next time. Wiedersehen.